had such a great celebration of life. He lived his life, and his life spoke for him, and his friends and family shared that today. And I want to say he had a great homegoing celebration. So many times people can't say that, but it was a joyous, uplifting celebration. It was truly a celebration. I want to say to you also, Dr. Joyce Jones, and to the entire family, that you did a great job in raising your son, because you know the seeds that we plant in our children, they follow us where we go. And I was just so overjoyed to hear all of the wonderful things that were said about Chris. And of course, being in the medical field myself, I just thank God for such a man as Chris that did so much and gave so much to people.
I have so many nice words about Chris. In school, he always looked out for me. He always made sure I had what I needed. Financial aid to books, everything. And a lot of the students are really going to truly miss him. And they sent several messages.
Chris, you were unique. You were an individual. You were my weekend family for the last 4 years. We were a duo. We rocked it out when we had to, and it's never going to be the same without you. Love you, mean it.
We just enjoyed all the antics, all the support, all the study hours, and everything was just wonderful.
Chris was very caring, very, very caring. Oh my gosh, he was hilarious. He keeps everyone in stitches. And he always will give me a new name. Every time I work in the ER, he did. One day I'm Annabelle, I might be Anime, or I might be a Pearl. But he will give me a new name every day. So Chris, I'm gonna miss you. But I'll see you again.
Chris, I will forever miss you, my friend. It was a pleasure to meet you working at St. Agnes. You was hilarious. You told many jokes, getting on a loudspeaker, calling people. I think the funniest moment with you was Halloween. And one of the employees walked by and was talking to you about what kind of costume they was getting for Halloween, and you told them, well, you don't need no costume because you already wearing it. That was so hilarious to me, and I will forever miss you. You will always be a part of my heart.
Chris was a wonderful friend. He taught me a lot. He was a lot of fun to be with. We loved his one-liners. Thought I'd never get out of here today without saying, "It's over." One of Chris's favorite one-liners.
And I just want to say how proud I am of my brother. I love him. I used to call him Big Brother Almighty. Okay. I'm going to miss him. And in the words of Chris, it's over.
And we just wanted to say, it's over.
Love you, Chris. Mean it. We'll miss you. And my life will never be the same.
It was a blessing to have had him in our lives instead of thinking about the loss as much. We feel it, but we don't want to focus on it as much as we did the blessing of having him and sharing in this part of his life that he enjoyed so much. He looked forward to school every single day.
He was always a pleasant person to deal with whenever it was. He said what he meant, and he meant what he said, but that was Chris. And so we, as a people, need to learn to appreciate people for who they are.
Okay, well, one thing I want to say about my cousin Chris is that he was a great guy. I know when they came down from Chicago, I remember my mother took us all to a store called Parker's, and she got us these big brown paper bags, and we were able to go in and fill them up. She must have spent almost $100 worth of candy. And that was the beginning of us getting to know Chris and Kim and Tony. And from that day forward, you know, it's always been June Orlando DeWitt, Tony, Chris, and Kim. You know, and it's always been that rhythm, always been those same 6 names, you know, for like a minute, because we were all pretty close, because our moms really hung out kind of tight because they lived here. So we had nothing but to grow up with each other. you know, and I just think that it was a wonderful thing having Chris as a cousin, and he was so ambitious, and I didn't know all the great stuff he did in the medical field, but after hearing about it, I was blown away. So I just think it's a beautiful thing, you know. Hopefully the family can understand that we're here to celebrate, and we're here to celebrate his life, and if I know Chris, he would say, stop all that fuss, and y'all go get something to eat or something like that, you know. So I just want to tell him that I love him and we miss him.
The thing I remember most about Chris is me and Chris used to sing on the same choir. When we were little children, we used to sing on the Buds of Promise. And we used to have these green robes with these little things that flipped. They were gold on one side and white on the other side. And we used to go, when we had choir practice, we would go to Miss Fanny Guy's house, and she would feed us. That's one of my memorable moments with Chris.
Chris, we all were raised together. We went to church together at St. Louis Zion Church. We were a strange group of children. The church was like an after-school program for us on Saturdays. We probably were the only few kids that would run to church and get mad if it was locked on a Saturday. And most kids were playing because we loved to sing so much. We spent so much time in church singing to the point the only way for them to get us out of the church was to turn the lights off and to turn the mics off.
I've known Chris for a long time, since high school. Always been very funny, outgoing.
The most funny story I know about Chris and how he used to tease me about my weaves I used to wear. And he always called me skinny. He always told me I was skinny than a chicken. But he's always called me a diva. But what I'm going to miss about Chris is his smile. Chris had a beautiful smile. He would smile from here to here. Beautiful smile. But I know I'll see him one day. I know I will see him one day. That's what helps me stay stronger, to know that I will see him again.
When I first met Chris, it was when Dr. Jones was living on Wright Street. And I stopped by to see him one day. And he came to the door and he said, yes. I said, is Dr. Jones home? He said, and who are you? And he never would release the doorknob for me to come in. And he stood there and he went and told her that I was outside. And then he came back and then he said, you can come in now. And I was like, wow, who is this? So she introduced me to that was her son.
You know, he's my brother. I'm gonna miss him a lot. And since day one, he's always been on me about, you know, just protecting me, shielding me. Like one of the funniest stories I had, it was when the first time I gotten a computer with a phone. I got my own phone. I was like in middle school. And it was kind of like around the time, like I had, you know, friends. Girls called the house all the time. And the first time a girl called the house, I was at, you know, I was kind of like at basketball practice. I remember stepping in the door, and the first thing he says to me was just like, that heifer Jessica called. So that's my brother though. He's just looking out for me, and I'm gonna love him and miss him.
I wish I could say there was a humbling bone in Chris, but he was just a very ostentatious type person. He was outgoing and fabulous, and you know, and knew it, and was proud, and just, you know, was very flamboyant, you know, with his actions and movements, and was very in-your-face type person if he didn't appreciate something that, you know, he disagreed with, and that was his forte, you know, and we all came to know that was his personality. We loved him for it. He had a beautiful voice. We often as kids would compete for songs, and it was just fun competition. And I'm gonna miss him dearly. In fact, once I called his number by accident, and we talked for a bit because I wasn't sure whose number I was dialing, and it ended up being him a few months ago. And his family, you know, there's another beautiful voice that we won't hear.
Chris was my very best friend in high school at Hoggard High School, and I met Chris through, we had several advanced classes together. And every morning when he saw me on the foyer area, he had his way of calling my name. So he would say, Yashonda, the superstar. And I was And I would say, Chris, you are too much. And so one of the things that I admired the most about Chris was that he was a very real person, very genuine person, and he selected who his friends were going to be. He knew if you were for him, he knew if you were against him. And I think what we shared the most was that we had the cultural arts, the theatricals together, and so we were involved in a lot of different productions and different things at school. So that's, I mean, our relationship just kept escalating. And he used to say to me, just be who you are, you know. And what I like is that when he told me about Johns Hopkins University, I didn't know anything about Johns Hopkins until he said, I'm going to be big one day. And I was like, you know what, Chris, you can do anything. And he used to tell me, you know what, if you want to be a preacher and a news anchor, no matter if you can dance, if you can sing, no matter whatever you can do, believe me, you can do it if you put your mind to it. So I love Chris. I love what he possessed, because he was a genuine, heartfelt person that loved from the heart. He would do anything for you, and he believed. Once he believed in you, it's almost like I believe even more in myself because I had that support. So my love for Chris will forever and a day always exist because he is truly my best friend. I love you, Chris.
Bold, very kind, handsome, very professional. He's a family man, really loves his family, very hard worker.
He used to always say, Aunt Shirley, you're gonna love me. You know, and we did a lot of things together. He came to Baltimore, Maryland. We also worked together. He worked with me. I was his supervisor at the hotel. He lived with me for a while. He got up on his feet, got his own place and everything. We did a lot of things together. I love him. I'm gonna miss him. I feel his spirit right now. Right now, I feel his spirit. And I was glad to see him, you know, before, you know, he passed. But I still feel like he's right here. And we talked trash, and he was still saying, you're going to love me. And we went to church together, and a lot of times we used to get up on Saturday morning, and we said, well, we're going to go to Baltimore, we're going to go to Wilmington, we're going to surprise them. And we would come to Wilmington, to Joyce's, and go to their church, and turn right back around after service and go back to Baltimore. And it's so much I could say about him. He was just like my child, because he lived up there in Maryland a long time with us. But we also always came home. We never forgot home. So I'm gonna miss him. I'm just gonna miss him. And his smiling face will always be there. And I'll always remember what he said. You're gonna love me.
To my sister Joyce, I want you to know that I love you, and that what the minister says, that this family will come together. Nothing will ever keep me and you apart, because you're like my second mom. But however, in being my second mom, I don't know how we had babies 3 days apart in March, Chris and Michael. And Chris was born with a lot of hair, so that him and Michael would fight. And so to get the best of Chris, Michael, who we call Juno, would grab Chris' hair and just pull him all around the floor. Chris would try to get Michael back, but his hand would slide down. They grew up together, they laughed together. I remember them coming from Chicago, and I took them down to the grocery store where I worked, and I gave them $1 a piece, and they filled up big super bags full of candy. And they called and told you, Mom, we get a lot of candy for $1. And so I just want to remember a lot of good times.
I do know what pain is from the loss of a loved one, but I do not know what yours is, because yours was very special with Chris. I know you'll miss him, but I also know you look forward to seeing him again.
But please know my prayers are with you. My love is with you.
Just all the family. I love you. I love you so dearly. Truly, as Reverend preached today, Chris is in heaven, having a hallelujah time.
Words cannot say how I feel at this moment. I can only imagine what it feels like
to lose a child, not just one child, but two. Because parents are programmed and wired that we will leave before children. But I realize that God does not ever put no more on us than we can be. So at this time, I'm going to just say, may the peace of God be with you.
I hope that God will give you strength in the coming days to understand that life is just a journey, not a destination.
I remember Chris when he was a young fellow. He and his brother being small with their mother at St. Luke in Zion Church here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Marvelous young man, always bubbly, always had a laugh, and he kept things going. And so with the memory and him being in my hometown, Baltimore, living, working at St. Agnes. My mother lived about 3 blocks from St. Agnes. I really didn't get to see him there, but knowing him as I knew of him, I'm quite sure the Lord is smiling to bring him home. So be confident in knowing that he is with the Lord.
Listening to Pastor Garnett today, I learned so much more about Chris that I didn't even know. And he just gave me, it benefited me also for the eulogy, a passion for life. Now, Chris had a passion for life and he loved what he did. And it just inspired me to follow my heart. And I just want to say my prayers are with the family. I love you all.
I just want to say that I'm going to miss him. I will always remember his words and his love that was shared and poured out for our visits. And I want to say to the family, I just love him.
We did have a disconnect for a while, but in the end, we were in a good place. Chris and I both were in a good place. We had reconnected as father and son. Respect was there, love was there, and we weren't afraid to show it. And I'm hearing from even his co-workers who came down today, they spoke of his kind words of saying, you know, we were back together. And if anything, you know, I'm at peace now. I'm at peace with him going. I know I see him in another life.
The memories that I did have of him and the impact of understanding what took place today, that he was well loved. He will be well missed. He did leave a legacy for his family.
Chris gave a lot to St. Agnes Hospital in the way of education, and we've chosen to memorialize him. One of our emergency room physicians, Jerry Snyder, took it upon himself to contact Stevenson University and ask for their assistance in setting up an education fund in Chris's memory. That fund is up and running and operational at this time and taking donations and contributions in. It will be used to benefit a nursing student in need to further their education. Also set up a page on Facebook that you can find by searching Chris Mackey Memorial, where we will post our pictures and detail our memories of Chris. There will also be a link on that page that will help you easier navigate to the webpage of Stevenson and to contribute and make donations.